emotional week, and but just to see you all here and is great. And if you can buy the book, or if you don't already have it, I'd be very, very grateful. I don't know. Normally we do a question and answer. I don't want to spoil the book and talk about it, but I think it's quite interesting in the sense it starts off with my convict ancestors and how they got to Australia, and I guess one of the things that I wanted to make clear, that this country gave them a great life, you know, and they could have always they could have gone back, and they didn't. Not those particular convicts; they couldn't read or write. But I had Irish convicts on the other side, who one of them forged a £10 note. There's quite a lot got left out, and so he was obviously the professor of the family, because that would have been quite hard to do, I imagine. And he married a woman who stole a sheep, and she was obviously had the McBride thing. You may as well steal a sheep rather than a chop. And but yeah, they could have gone back, you know, but they stayed here. And I love England and Ireland. An old friend from primary school at the back from the Pebble incident. It's great to see everybody here, and all my supporters, and everyone who reads this book. To a certain extent, you become a family, which I really mean. And there's another friend of mine from some senior school here, which makes me so happy. And anyone that's been involved in the campaign, there's quite a few who have come out early in the mornings, cold in Canberra, and in the heat when it gets hot. And you are my family. It's been you know, a hard road, and to see all of you turn out day in, day out has been terrific. You know, we had a few tears last week, and you know, it's been a fair bit of soul searching this week. And but yeah, I'm so happy to see everybody here. We might have to have a questions and answers, so you actually get to hear what you want to hear. I don't really know what people want to hear about.
Well, how's about you go on that one? I'll pass this around. So, do anyone have any questions for David?
Come on, Craig, you always like to make a speech.
I think there's been a little bit of confusion during the case, and more recently, just over the initial objective of yours to report the overzealous investigation with some of the guys over there. And that sort of morphed into the war crimes investigation. So it's sort of turned on its head. It's a little bit confusing for some people. I think I've got my head around it. I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit about how that happened, if that's okay. I know it's digging down deep.
Yeah, I'll try to go into that as much as I can. If you read the book, I think it becomes quite clear. You know, it's the organisation is broken, I believe. It's become very politicised, and nothing you see on the surface is actually what is happening underneath. Right from the certain things that I've only have come to realise later by piecing things together, but a lot of the rot set in early in the war. And the problem with wars these days is that they are quite political, especially in a democracy. And people, you can win votes by having a popular war. And to a certain extent that's what Afghanistan became. And I think this was, while I didn't know it at the time, but as early as I could see the politicisation when I first joined in 2005, and I saw the way they did inquiries into accidents and how they always had to find someone at the bottom to blame, rather than ever look at the organisation, or rather than ever look at the decision makers. The idea was find someone at the bottom, blame them, put all the blame around their neck, and then the organisation will go through. And if most people that work in public service or whatever can kind of see that mode. What happened? They set a very bad precedent in 2006, I think. It's now quite famous, you know, the Shepherd Boy incident when Ben Robert Smith shot a kid, and then resultingly gave away. They're meant to be in a position where they were meant to be hiding, and as a result of that, a lot of Afghans came out. We don't even know if they were Taliban, but anyway, a lot more people got killed. Now, the military brass gave him a medal for it. And they didn't just give him a medal for it, they probably thought they were doing the right thing, whatever, but they really talked it up, and they said they turned this kid, an unarmed kid, into an anti-coalition militia force trying to outflank them. You know, that's how they wrote it up. And that was, it was a single incident, but it was a sort of like a microcosm of the rest of the war. And some SAS people in his patrol complained about it, and they said, you shouldn't have shot that kid. He was just walking along. There was nothing to suggest that he was Taliban. And he sort of threatened them and said, you know, you cross me and I'll kill you. Yet the brass backed him. You know, the brass backed him. So what lesson did that send to the rest of the troops, you know? Kill kids, lie about it, we'll give you a medal. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but they also used it. I think that the politicians, Brendan Nelson and John Howe were in power at the time, and they used it to popularise the war, because they wanted to, you know, they talked it up. They allowed him to give interviews. He's a good-looking guy, looks like a Ken Knoll, and he gave. Normally the SAS don't give interviews, and they gave the interviews. And as a result, they made the war that people weren't really sure about in Australia at that stage. They were able to send more troops and make it look like it was a boys' own adventure, and get some sort of a cash out. Now, even when Kevin Rudd won the election, he didn't withdraw the troops. You know, it was a popular war. He didn't think Iraq was popular, but that was considered to be fighting terrorism, and it looked kind of good, and that was the message. And so we set ourselves up for continuing putting out this message that it was a good war, that we were winning, and it was a bit like that scandal, the Enron scandal, where there was a sort of company that was losing money or had no assets, but it was just kept saying, oh, we're making huge profits and making huge profits. And so the war was like that. There was no plan to it. And in many ways, the biggest war crime of all was the war itself, and the way that it was run without a plan, without any, there was no plan written by anybody who had any idea about that part of the world that was actually going to win. You know, George W. Bush sent troops there in 2001, 2002, in order just to blow things up, because it looked good and to win the 2004 election, which he did do, because blowing people up, especially, you know, people who look different and in the other side of the world, is a vote winner. And that's one of the reasons we've got to worry about. My journey on this is, you know, I grew up very much within the establishment and very much believing in democracy, and but my arc, I guess, is you began to see that there are some severe problems with democracy of war, in that if you can popularise a war, and I worry the same thing's going to happen with China, people will go to war to win votes, and that's a real problem. And it's not that hard to do because the media are relatively easy to influence. And for example, what's happened with Putin and Xi is that you spend about 20 years of what they call information operations, where people just read bad things about particular people. And before you know it, I mean, there'd be no doubt now, if we drop bombs on Russia just unilaterally, they'd get away with it because they have massaged the population with that sort of information operation. Anyway, back to Afghanistan. It was something happened in, well, we're going piecing things together. It's quite a circumstantial case, and something happened